Thank you, Anna Maria, and good afternoon. Let me start with a small story. So Vitor and we were in Detroit last month. It was our last handover with the Detroit OEMs. I think he's very well positioned now. He knows them well. He's earned their respect. Usually when I fly to Detroit, or when I travel to Detroit, I fly via Toronto. Yeah, the Toronto airport and the bridge that goes between Canada and the US, it's the same road. It's a simple 3.5-hour drive. And as I get just past the halfway mark, just past London, Ontario, where I was born, if I look out the right side of the car, I can see the small school. It was my first school. It's slightly bigger than a tennis court. And it gives me a real sense of homecoming. And sometimes I'm able to make a small detour. I can visit my parents either on the way to Detroit or on the way back to Toronto. And this time when I stopped in, as it was my last business trip, my father handed me a folder. So over these SinterCast years, he had collected the old brochures and press releases and articles that we had written and newspaper clippings. It was about 10 centimeters thick. There were 3 folders. And as I sat and leafed through the first of the 3 folders, about halfway through, I came to this announcement. And this was the announcement of me joining SinterCast in November 1991. I had forgotten about the announcement. Indeed, I had forgotten about the man. But happily, not much has changed over the last 35 years. It's a funny thing. In these 35 years, I think I've had a mustache for about 18 months. And for any of my engineers sitting there, they would draw a straight line through those 2 data points and come to the wrong conclusion for the first time. I just wanted to start with that. I've always enjoyed the AGM. It's the opportunity for us to tell the story the way that we want to tell it. So often now in conferences, there's strict time limits, and many of the conferences change to question and answer format. So this is where you can take the time and put the story on record. And for me, this plot is the story of SinterCast. This is a story of growth and effort and achievement, but it's also the story of periods of frustration, and it's a story about timing. Of course, it's disappointing for me that the last 1.5 years on this plot, my last 1.5 years as CEO of SinterCast, are a down patch. But I balance that disappointment with a knowledge of what's coming. I absolutely believe in the 6 million engine equivalents before the end of this decade. I absolutely believe in the 8 million engine equivalents in 2031. I said a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago, that in the fullness of time, all commercial vehicle OEMs will adopt CGI. And now that has come true. So last year at this meeting, we shared the information about Fiat Powertrain with their new 13-liter engine where they use CGI. This year, earlier this month, Volvo announced that they have a new 13-liter engine, and it will also use CGI. And those were the last 2. And I think that was a real vision from the SinterCast side, because it takes about 4 years to develop a new engine. And we saw that 10 years out. We saw the need for everyone to increase the pressure in the engines, to improve the fuel economy and improve the emissions. And that has come true. I think also, I believe in the future because the fundamentals are so good. The US Department of Transportation says that transport will increase by 50% before 2050. Yeah, 2/3 of the transport is by truck. It means that there will be more trucks. It means that we work in a growth industry. And the other thing that's happened recently, of course, is that the timeline for electrification has pushed out. And I think that's a victory for SinterCast. It's not a victory in that the other guy loses. It's a victory in the sense that when all of the OEMs were saying it's their priority, and all of the OEMs were saying it's coming tomorrow, and all of the media outlets were covering it as the headline story. It was little SinterCast who was saying the timing doesn't add up. The infrastructure isn't there. The materials aren't available. The materials are all controlled by China, and nothing is fast or easy in our industry. And SinterCast was right on that one. Clean fuels also go in our favor. Clean fuels are growing both in volume and in legislative acceptance. As Ian was saying, it's the internal combustion, whatever fuel you use in it. So there are simply a lot of things that point toward the strength of the future. I believe in 8 million. I believe in timing. When we came out of COVID, we set 13 consecutive quarters of year-on-year growth, and I believe that we will beat that string, and I believe that that string will begin in the second half of this year. Let me change a little bit. I'm going to leave the market to Vitor. He has command over the market. He sees the future. He is the future. Let me change a little bit and talk about some other things. Many of you will recognize in this nice picture my predecessor, Bertil Hogman. You may also recognize Daphne's predecessor, Paul Asserson. You may also recognize me in the back. This might help. I chose this picture for two reasons. The first is that Bertil and Paul are representatives. They're representatives of all of the people who have worked and contributed in SinterCast. We stand on their shoulders. And when I speak about all of the people who contributed over the past, some of the colleagues are here, and Tom Schroeder is with us. I was the technical director of SinterCast since 1991. Tom was the first person that I hired into the company. He's the guy in those early years that was making the installations and making sure that the ramps were successful. He retired at the end of last year, and we said, let's not do a retirement party, but rather you come to the AGM, we'll retire together. So among all of those people who have contributed, I'm happy that Tom is here. Tom boy. Indeed. The second reason that I chose this picture is that it came from the annual report of 2001. And that was published 2 months before I was appointed CEO in this room 24 years minus 5 days ago. And while I had the annual report open, I went through and I saw the status at that time, picking it up from different pages. So at that time, we had 8 installations in 6 countries. Today it is 58 in 13 countries. We shipped 4,400 sampling cups. We're currently on a run rate of about 200,000 per year. We didn't post engine equivalents then, but I know what was in production. The only thing we had at that time was the 3.3-liter Audi V8. I know that the volume was slightly under 10,000 units per year, so it was around 12,500 engine equivalents. We're currently running at a rate of around 3 million. We were at 4 million. We'll get back and above, but a fantastic growth there. And the full year revenue in 2001 was 6.2 million Swedish crowns. The last 2 years we were 108 and 135. And at that time we had 22 employees. Tomorrow we will have 23. So it's a fantastic scaling. We would all like it to be bigger and further and faster, of course, me as well, but it's a good story. I think of what I will miss in the post-SinterCast years, and here you have lovely pictures. On the left is Wilson Gesser, the longtime technical director of Tupi, and in the other picture it's Luis Geddes, the vice president of operations at Tupi. And I will miss the friends and the relationships with the customers. You know, it's nice to go to Brazil. They call me Stevie. Stevie is a nice name. It's what you call a small boy named Steve. It's what everyone used to call me, what some of my friends still do. And at a certain point in your career, there's some achievement and some success, and you start to maybe fancy yourself a bit of a captain of industry. And on one of my trips to Tupi, I learned that they had an internal name for me, and they call me Gato Branco. And for those of you who need help with your Portuguese translation, it means the white kitten. So if you fancy yourself captain of industry and you learn that, stuff like that brings you back down to earth in a hurry. I will miss the Wednesday management meetings. We have a really good team. I love the accountability in that meeting. It's nice that some of the managers who aren't traveling were able to be here. But around the table, everyone says, that's mine, I've got that, I'll do that. So the accountability and the professionalism is really wonderful. I will miss projects. I'll miss winning and installing a new installation, and I'll miss winning and launching a new engine program, and just generally development projects. I will also miss the SinterCast shirt. I have a closet full of them. I don't know what I'll wear on Monday, but one of the tasks for next week is to go out shirt shopping. I'm making a presentation. So, okay, all of the shirts next week are going to be blue. Yeah, so I was speaking about projects, and in our world, in this metallurgical world, there are two big handbooks in the Western world. They're like encyclopedias of metallurgy. And one of them had a new issue in 2004, and I was invited to write the chapter on compacted graphite iron. And then in 2017, the other handbook had a new issue, and I was invited, together with Wilson Gesser, to co-author the chapter on CGI. And at the same time, Wilson, who was a professor at the local university, as a part-time professor, he was writing a Portuguese textbook for his students. And so they were kind of going concurrently. And on my next trip to Tupi, after he had published the book, I bought it, and I had it in my briefcase. I went to his office, and I pulled it out, and I showed it to him. He had a big smile, and it was a fun surprise. And I handed it to him, and I said, could you sign it for me? And he took the book, and he opened the front cover, and I said, you don't have to do it now. You take your time. I'm here for the week. And he just wrote in it. And he wrote, to Steve, the most important reference in this book. So it's really beautiful. So sadly, very sadly, Wilson passed suddenly in February of 2020. At that time, he had been invited by the World Foundry Congress to make the keynote presentation at the 2021 World Foundry Congress in Korea. Obviously couldn't do it, and because of COVID, it was delayed until 2022. But the management team at Tupi asked me if I would make the presentation in his honor. And the reason that I tell that story, of course it's special, but it's also because it shows the closeness of the relationship for so many years between SinterCast and Tupi. And Vitor has made a wonderful start at carrying that over, and so many of the technical team have contact with Tupi every day. I showed the picture of Wilson and Luis, not because they are the only customers, of course, but they were the pioneers. They were the ones who developed this thing. And like Paul and Bertil, they're representatives, representatives of all of the customers, and equally we stand on their shoulders. Things that I'll miss, and of course some things that I'll miss less. One of the things, of course, that I will miss is that rush and the buzz, particularly at the end of the year. And Bertil, in the old days, he used to say, if you don't have the order before midsummer, you won't get the installation before year end. And we still say that in SinterCast. But I bet that we broke Bertil's rule 20 times. Yeah? everyone in SinterCast pushes to squeeze as much as we can into a year and as much as we can in a quarter. And we have a little saying inside of SinterCast, you know, squeeze that in. We'll worry about next quarter. So you, the shareholders, have a management who understand the importance of delivering and understand the importance of progress. One of the things that I don't have to worry about missing is that there will be a mustache at the helm of SinterCast. Vitor has all of the attributes to be the CEO of SinterCast. He has knowledge. He has experience. He has a vision. He knows where he wants to take the company. And he has this wonderful combination of energy, a very positive energy, and patience with determination. And we look at that plot at the beginning of the presentation and how you have these periods of frustration. That's exactly what you need as CEO, a combination of patience and determination. You have to push, but you can't become a pest. During the start of the CEO succession, we identified Vitor as a lead candidate from the very early review. And I had some discussions with him and Bob Dover, our former chairman. Bob traveled to Portugal to meet and interview. And then Vitor came to meet the entire board. And after that, I think he was convinced and wanting to join. And as we walked away from that meeting with the board, we traveled together afterward. And he said, you know, sometimes people put a positive spin on these things. And he said, Steve, tell me, what's it really like in SinterCast? And I said, no, it is as we presented. It's a good little company. And I told him, as CEO, I sleep like a baby. And what I can tell him today with 1 hour left, it means that I sleep for 2 or 3 hours. I wake up crying, and I spend the rest of the night with the bottle. Too late. So I'm very confident. I'm a believer. I want to leave Vitor. My parting words are from the Serenity Prayer. It goes something like, give me the strength to change the things that I can change. Give me the patience to tolerate the things that I can't change. And give me the wisdom to tell the difference between the two. And the reality is that sometimes, as CEO of SinterCast, the only thing you can do is worry. So don't worry too much. You've got a good team. You've got a good pipeline. Keep it simple. Do the right thing every day, and it will grow. So I hope that you break my record of 13 consecutive quarters. I hope that you break my record of 15 consecutive years of dividend, and I hope that you break my record of 24 years, minus 5 days, as CEO. Thank you.